Welcome to the Brahminy guide, or however it's supposed to be called. This is a pretty fun weapon specialized in AoE content, and without further ado, let's get right into it. So, let's start by taking a look at the weapon features. 80% chance to trigger bounce when hitting a weak spot, so we already know that with this gun, you'll always want to hit weak spots, otherwise you lose out on a lot of damage. When bounce hits a weak spot, there's a 35% chance for it to continue to ricochet. If bounce does not defeat an enemy or there is no target, weapon damage plus 20% for the next 1 bullet, up to 5 stacks, and bounce will prioritize enemies with higher HP. So these weapon features pretty much dictate the mods that you want to run, but I'll go over them later. Now let's take a look at what bounce does. So, it's a special ammo effect. Upon hitting an enemy with a bullet, bounce to hit a random enemy within 10 meters radius to deal weapon damage of 60% attack. The element type is the same as the weak weapons element. The additional damage can crit, strike weak spots, and will decay with distance. And then they give you a reduced version of the damage formula. Now let's take a look at the calibrations that you want to be running. So for snipers, you essentially have 3 choices, right? So you have rapid shot style, then here you also have portable style, and you have stabilized style. So if you choose rapid shot style, you won't benefit from the faster bolt pulling speed because this weapon doesn't have a bolt. So essentially with this calibration, you'll deal less damage per shot, but you'll reload 50% faster. Now here, because you don't benefit from the faster bolt pulling speed, this is a weapon where you can actually stay in ADS mode. So you could go for stabilized style right here for less recoil. And if you choose portable style, essentially you'll just have faster movement speed and just action speed when performing actions with this gun. And for calibration substats, go for double weak spot damage bonus. So really here, for the main effect, it's kind of a matter of personal choice, although at the same time, not really, because your calibration choice will also depend on your mods that you run, which I'll go over later. Now, let's take a look at the accessories you want to run. So, you have between 2 choices, right? So for the general idea, you want stability and range if you stay in ADS. If you OTS, then go for accuracy and range, right? So, for instance here, if you stay in ADS, run the integrated flash hider for less recoil. However, if you don't, go for large break for more accuracy. Then for optics, it's the same idea once again. Advanced combat optic for the most amount of stability. And the other choice would be, you could go for precision optic for the, more range, right? Now for tactics, a compact infrared indicator for more stability or tactical laser sight for more accuracy. Now for your secondary weapons and melee weapon, let's start with the secondary run, either Wildfire or Bingo. They are both fine. Bingo can give you a total of 45% weak spot damage bonus, which your gun benefits from, and Wildfire can spread bullseye marks to other targets, so your bounce can benefit from it. For your melee, it's going to be the Long Axe, which gives the Fortress Warfare buff from its heavy attack. Although, you probably won't be using that much, even if you can trigger the buff by animation canceling it like this, right? So, I just do this, I'll get the buff. Right here, it just dropped. So, now for your key gear and gear sets, let's start with key gear. The game gives you 3 options: hot dog shorts, tattoo pants, and sharp edge pants. Now, hot dog shorts makes it so that each time you trigger a bounce, there's going to be 2 bounce bullets instead of 1. So pretty much this is only applicable when there's at least 2 different targets near your main target. Now for tattoo pants, it makes it so that when you trigger bounce, when a bounce hits another target, it'll bounce again, dealing the same damage previously. Then sharp edge pants makes it so that each instance of bounce damage is essentially doubled on the same target, since it triggers 2 times, right? Bounce trigger count plus 1. Realistically, I believe the upgrades don't matter that much. They're not going to be game breaking between each other, though I do need to say that you shouldn't really go for tattoo pants, this one right here, since you're getting diminished return by the fact that the weapon already has that feature built in itself. So if I take a look at the weapon features, as you can see, and the second feature, when bounce hits a weak spot, there is a 35% chance for it to continue to ricochet. If you've made it this far into the video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. I greatly appreciate the support. Hot Dog Shorts gives you better AoE potential, and Sharp Edge has less AoE impact than Hot Dog Shorts since you don't have the, well, 2 different bounce bullets, right? But it'll do more damage to its targets that do receive the bounce damage. So really, I'd say don't really spend your Stark Crom on the Sharp Edge pants. Just get yourself the Hot Dog Shorts, unless if your bounce is struggling to kill enemies. Then for your gear sets, you should go for 3-piece Agent with 2-piece Renegade, since you'll be using this weapon for more AoE situations, right? And you'll be killing a lot and changing enemies often. So you will be able to stack the 3-piece buff from Agent, which right here. Get bullets, oh my god, okay. Get bullet saver effect with every precise kill, weak spot damage plus 15% for 8 seconds. Effect can stack up to 3 times, right? So this is going to give you 45% weak spot damage bonus. It's easily gotten, whereas if you say you run 3-piece Renegade right here, 3-piece Renegade, hitting the same enemy consecutively grants 1 stack of Archer's Focus, increasing weak spot damage by 4% up to 10 stacks. Archer's Focus stacks are halved when the target is changed. For this one, you'll benefit more from it if you continuously shoot at the same target, right? Which then means that you'd be fighting a boss, and this weapon, it's not really made to fight bosses, although it does have the weapon damage plus 25% for each bullet if you fight bosses that don't spawn aids. Now, you could run a 3-piece Best C for the 40% weapon damage bonus when you're crouched, but I think it's a bad requirement that has to be fulfilled, since you won't always be able to stay mobile like that, so I won't really be recommending it. Now, for your Substats Priority, you should aim for weak spot damage bonus first, since it's the stat that rolls the highest per roll, 1.0%. What this means is you'll be looking for, say for instance, if I look at this mod, you'll be looking for precision suffix mods. Then, you should aim to get some bounce damage bonus, which is the bounce suffix mod. So if I can show you right here into the bounce category, this one. So bounce damage plus 1.2% per roll. Now here, do note that if you get bounce suffix mods, the substats other than bounce damage bonus that you can get are bounce weak spot damage, bounce crit damage, and bounce trigger chance. You will not be able to get crit damage, status damage, weak spot damage, weapon damage, nor elemental damage. Then, you should also get yourself some weapon damage bonus, as you wouldn't want to keep stacking weak spot damage bonus to eternity due to diminishing return. Then for the rest, such as reload speed bonus and magazine capacity, they're fine as long as they synergize with the mods that you run. And lastly, don't get elemental damage bonus, status damage bonus, or crit. This gun doesn't benefit much or at all from these stats. Now, let's move on to the mods that you'll want to be playing with. So for the gun, go with targeted bounce. It's the best in slot for this weapon, as it allows better proc chances for your weapon feature, which is the 35% bounce trigger chance when bounce hits a weak spot. Then, for your secondary weapon, a vulnerability... Oh, I actually have shrapnel souvenir on this thing, but go in bullseye, get yourself a vulnerability amplifier for a bonus 8% damage increase. Then for melee, well, it's a Fortress Warfare weapon, so really any of the Fortress Warfare mods can work as long as you fulfill their requirements. Now, moving on to your head mod, you have 2 choices. So you go into here, you've got Momentum Up and Precise Strike. So Momentum Up will give you a slight fire rate buff to compensate for not having as much fire rate compared to, for instance, the Bingo, where you can shoot insanely fast with a rapid shot style. Momentum Up can also give you a total of 150% weapon damage bonus, assuming you have a maximum of 10 ammo capacity for your gun. Then Precise Strike gives you a stacking weak spot damage bonus, 12% each stack, at a max value of 36% for certain bullets. And the reason I say certain bullets is because when you eventually reach max stacks, every time you shoot with the stacks maxed, right? Then during that delay, you will lose 1 stack, so you'll be at 24%. Then after you shoot again, you'll be back at 36%, then 24, 36, so you'll be cycling between those 2 numbers. But in short, Precise Strike is going to be the better option. Now for your mask mod. So, the game gives two options to bounce currently. So you have break bounce, and if I come here, you've got precision bounce. Precision bounce, you don't really care about the 6th bounce being a critical hit. Really, you should go for break bounce, so when bullet hits an enemy above 50%, the bullet's final damage plus 50%. And the reason for that is because, once again, it synergizes with the weapon feature that says bounce will prioritize enemies with higher HP. So it's a very straightforward choice. Go for break bounce. Now for your gloves, go for either munitions amplifier or weak spot damage boost. Pretty much you need to consider which one has better substats and which one between weak spot damage bonus and weapon damage bonus you have the most in order to combat its diminishing return. Though most of the time you have more weak spot damage bonus, so probably get yourself a munitions amplifier, but of course you should always test it on a dummy. Though do keep in mind that damage bonus against normal enemies can kind of falsify your results, since dummies are considered as normal enemies. Now for your shoes, covered advance will be your general best, although you can definitely consider Ruthless Reaper Precision to never reload. Do note that if you run Ruthless Reaper Precision, stuff that gives you reload speed buffs, such as Rapid Shot Style, will become a debuff to this gun, since the only thing you benefited from Rapid Shot Style, which is the reload speed buff, will not be needed anymore. And if you run Momentum Up as your helmet mod, you'll pretty much never fall below 50% of your mag, and you will never benefit from the weapon damage buff from Momentum Up. So do keep that in mind if you end up running Ruthless Reaper Precision. Then, moving on to top, it's the same ideas as gloves, either munitions amplifier or weak spot damage bonus. For your pants, you've got pretty much 3 options here. You have Unstoppable, which is weak spot damage plus 20% when a bullet hits a target more than 20 meters away, and for each additional 1 meter away from the target, weak spot damage plus 1% up to 20%. So this is you have the choice to pick between this. Then you can choose Bullet Siphon. Weapon damage was 5%. Every 5 bullets consumed in the magazine grants 4% weapon damage, capped at 20%. Then lastly, of course, 3 strikes. For the first 3 hits after reloading, not exceeding 50% of magazine capacity, weak spot damage plus 50%. Now, Unstoppable will be your best in slot as long as you shoot from 20 meters and further. It's pretty much a 20% to 40% weak spot damage bonus for each shot depending on your distance with the enemy. Other than Unstoppable, you should go for 3 strikes for the total of 150% of weak spot damage bonus, although Bullet Siphon can also be best in slot if you run it with the Ruthless Reaper Precision, which as long as you never reload, you will eventually stack that buff to its max value, which would be 25% total. Now let's move on to your Cradle buffs. So you're always going to want long range enhancement, deadly combo, and bounced rampage. Then let's talk about the situational ones. You can pick anti-balance sniper rifle for if you're dealing with super anomalies. You can also take a master tactician if you're fighting against bosses. You can take deviation master if you're fighting against great ones, so bosses and elites. Tactical combo can be used as long as you reload or switch weapons periodically, otherwise it's useless. You can use steady hand as long as you're either in Fortress Warfare state and or if you shoot at marked enemies. Can run Lone Walker for the 20% increased damage to monsters if you're fighting solo. And lastly, you can run Bounty Hunter as long as you kill your marked enemies. Now let's talk about the food buffs. So let's begin with the drinks ones first. It's actually not displayed here, so I actually have to go in my mimetics. So mimetic Cradle, here, all the way down here. You can consider the Stardust Raspberry Shaved Ice. Now, I know the buff isn't displayed on screen, but the effect is that it pretty much prolongs the duration of the debuffs that you apply, so you can consider this buff for your bullseye effect, as long as you run a bullseye weapon. Then, for your food buffs, if you take a look in the stove, almost everything here could be used, or everything that gives you a buff, right? So, for instance, if you just scroll down here a little bit, bone and deviated sausage, more damage against bosses. Mixed fried hot dog, more damage against bullseye, but really, They can be used to a different degree, but Shattered Bread will be your best choice right here. Used to increase all weapon damage by 25%. So this, along with Assorted Canned Fruits, used to increase weak spot damage by 25% when sanity is above 80%. So this concludes my guide on this weapon. If you've enjoyed this guide, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. I greatly appreciate the support, and I'll see you in my next one. Take care.